How you are in the world matters. Overwhelm is inevitable and optional. It's time to listen up and make it optional for you. Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast, making overwhelm optional for you, because overwhelm is no fun and it's no place to live from. In fact, when we're stuck in overwhelm, we tend to see the world in a very narrow way because we're in this high alert system. So the nervous system gets kind of so overstimulated into fear and anxiety and stress that we get stuck into this very black and white thinking, and we just focus on everything that's wrong, and we get stuck between a rock and a hard place. And if that's you, if you're that deep in overwhelm, then you're in the right place. So this week's episode is all about how you can use self-distraction techniques to battle against the constant messages of fear and anxiety that have always been there, I expect, in the media, but right now are absolutely insane. It's been distracting me, and as you know, I practice like a ninja taking back control of my attention, and yet it's really been upsetting me. So I've once again, even though you could argue that at this point in history, maybe you should read the news. I don't know if that's true because it seems to filter through anyway. But there's so much nonsense going on at the moment in the news. There's so much fear and anxiety being pushed. And I've gone down the rabbit hole of anxiety about it myself because I don't want to live in a world. I don't want the world to be divisive and full of fear and anxiety. And it has led me to being very concerned about what's going on and where we're headed. But actually that's not helping me. It's not helping me help anyone. It's not helping me have good relationships. It's not helping me enjoy the life that I have now. So it's just not helping in any way. It's not helpful, which is the whole point. That it's been shown that listening to the news, watching the news is really bad for our mental health. And yet right now we're being bombarded by government campaigns, like mass campaigns of fear and anxiety, even when things have got arguably much better. And that, I guess, is what concerns me. And I've just reached a stage where I've been looking at the news recently thinking this is like some bizarre Punch and Judy show. You know, what is going on? You couldn't write this stuff. You couldn't make it up. It's just so seesaw and doomy. And I feel that it's worse than ever, but I'm probably wrong. I expect, if we look back, that this is just, fear sells. So I don't know. And it's kind of addictive, isn't it? Because we go back to the news. I know I've been searching through, trying to find information that will reduce my anxiety, that will give me the hope I'm looking for, because nothing's ever all terrible. And when everything is presented as that terrible, then I'm going to be looking underneath that for hope and for empowerment and freedom and joy, because where's all that gone? But I think possibly it wasn't there, and that this whole worldwide nature of the current situation feels bigger. And I'm wondering if it is, or whether that's just what's going on in the news and how it's being presented, because how can we know? Basically, we only know what is printed. So I'm not suggesting that we all suddenly go, life is the opposite of what we're being told. What I'm arguing is that when things get this doomy and gloomy, if they are arguably worse than normal, whatever normal is, then, and I don't mean that in a new normal sense. God, I hate that phrase. I mean, as in, is there more doom and gloom this year than last year or the year before? Or is pretty much that's what sells papers and that's what governments like to put out so that they can then rescue us? Is that just actually, is it always been like this? If we went back through history, would we find some people in power putting out doom and gloom? Is it actually not that different? It just feels it because it's very, very distracting at the moment. I'm finding it very, very distracting. So what I've decided to do, and this may help you, is use what's going on at the moment with these constant fear and anxiety tactics in the media. I've decided to use it to hone my ninja attention control skills. So you might like to join me with this. So first of all, I'm stepping back because I have found it quite addictive. I'm looking for hope, I'm looking for certainty, and there isn't any. And it's just getting messier and messier at a time when, you know, if you look at the actual data, there's some really good news, but it's not being printed. And that makes me really, really suspicious, because why would you not want to make people feel better? I don't understand that. And maybe that's me being naive. Maybe that's because I just want people to feel better. Of course I do. But so I don't know what's going on, and I don't want to even look anymore at the why you would want to keep a population miserable. I don't want to look at that. It's just too sad. It's too horrible. So I have to assume that the people putting out messages of fear and doom are doing so for a reason that they're doing it because actually I've gone with this. This is my most compassionate view, is that they are in states of fear and doom themselves, and that when we're in a state of fear and doom, so they're overwhelmed, what I was talking about earlier, and they feel like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So therefore, their behaviour is coming from that high stress state. And so because it's coming from that high stress state, they are stuck in their own loops of doom, and then they're putting that out. So what they're putting out is a reflection of what they're going through, and that if you don't find that helpful, and God knows it's not helpful to me, it's making me miserable, then the best you can do is not read it or listen to it or watch it, because believe me, it all filters down. Because I've actually spent the last 10 years not listening to the news, and anything important filters down. You don't miss anything because it usually goes around in circles, and it does feel very, very repetitive at the moment, doesn't it? So there's looking after your mental health, taking back control of your attention by saying, no, I'm not gonna read that, watch that, or whatever anymore. And then there's also, for me, the compassion and the understanding. So fear is a really bad place to make decisions from. It's just not a good place to make, because it's going to be based on survival. And that's not about thriving. It's just about getting through. And that seems to be the messages that are coming out. So I'm having compassion for the people putting the messages out, because that is how I wish to be in the world. But I'm also saying, no, come on now. There's some really good news, really, really good news out there, and you're not sharing it, but that's because you're stuck in overwhelm. That's what I'm going with. And then I'm going with, okay, so this is my opportunity to really, really hone my ninja skills of attention control. And one of those is to choose not to listen, watch, or absorb. But the other is to deliberately, because I found it so heavy and just soul destroying, quite frankly, deliberately using techniques of self-distraction. Now, what I mean by this is, if you imagine that all around you is goodness, which there is, all around you is goodness, but that your mind is wired for fear because of survival, so it's always going to seek out fear, seek out stuff to warn you of. So that's being heightened in the mainstream media at the moment and from government. So extra time for self-distraction. And what I mean by this is, there's good all around you. How do you focus on it? Because it's not easy, because the mind doesn't naturally focus on the good stuff. It just doesn't. That's just how it is. It's not helpful. If while you're smelling the rose, you get eaten by a whatever ancient thing would eat a human. There's lots of them, aren't there? We always go for saber-toothed tiger. I don't know why, because I'm sure there are a whole ton of other exciting animals hunting humans at the time. But anyway, so this deliberate self-distraction by ignoring the doom and deliberately inviting in as much of the good. So all you're doing is changing your focus. You're placing your attention on the good and deliberately ignoring the bad. So this is a real upskilling, a real deliberate self-destruction to combat the negative. So this means you're going to have to practice it, but also it's very, very personal, right? Because one thing could be heart-filling and joyful to me, but not to you. So that means you need to take some time. We all need to take some time to notice where the good stuff is. What is good for us? What do we long for? What do we wish we had more of? What's here that we can savor? Savoring is a really, really good thing, because particularly if we do it using the body. So for example, you wake up in the morning and it's sunny. Well, how much do you notice the warmth? Because it is extraordinary, isn't it, that we will travel when we're allowed to for heat, for warmth, for relaxation and a holiday. But when heat is at home, we tend to just go, oh, it's really hot, or we don't really notice it because we're getting on with our lives. So really, really good practice is when it's sunny. So I'm recording this on one of the hottest days of the year, and I've noticed that because, you know, it's difficult to sleep, isn't it, when it's really, really hot, because we're just not in the UK, we're not set up for extremes of weather, and at the moment this is quite extreme. And so that means, you know, I'm not sleeping, so that means I'm more sensitive and emotional and maybe more likely to moan. Not as much these days, thank goodness, because upping my self-awareness and listening to those words of moaning, it's too hot. And then what I've noticed recently is going, I'm not moaning, but it is too hot, which is hilarious, isn't it? Because that is kind of moaning, but a bit of sympathy for ourselves. You know, we're just not acclimatized to sudden extreme temperatures for England, but it is beautiful. So that waking up in the morning going, oh, how lovely is this? This is the temperature that I would go to Greece for. How lovely is this? Because it is lovely. Yes, it's difficult if you don't have air conditioning or fans. Yesterday I was trying to work and I was recording, so I couldn't have the noise, and my neighbour across the road for some reason was doing power tool stuff all morning or most of the day, which I just thought, God, you're crazy, because it's so hot. But it was really, really noisy, so I just shut all the windows. It was so hot, so hot. But luckily he stopped for lunch, and that's when I did all my recording. So, and my live workshop in Get Your Life Back, lunchtime workshop, woohoo, love it. But anyway, where was I? Yes, so noticing the good and then absorbing it into the body. So when we notice the sunshine, does it bring back memories of holidays, or can you just even be completely present to the now? The fact that the sun on your skin feels really nice, the fact that, you know, I don't know about you, but I get to the end of winter and I'm like, oh, I really need warmth in my bones, you know. I find it really deeply relaxing. That's why we like saunas and things and hot tubs, isn't it? Because it's so relaxing. So even if you're, you know, rushing to go to work, just taking a moment and noticing the warmth, that you're not shivering, that you don't have to quickly put a dressing gown on and go and make a cup of tea because you're cold, you know, just like savouring in the body. What does the sun mean to you? How does it feel? What does it, so even if you're not outside in the warmth, maybe you haven't got time to go outside in it before having your breakfast, but even just looking out the window and noticing it's a beautiful day today, how does that feel to me? And it's not, this isn't about taking a lot of time, this is about changing focus. So noticing the good and then absorbing it into the body, allowing the mind to take a break from the anxiety and doom about whatever's going on, all the busyness of the day and how you're going to cope with the heat, that kind of thing. And just allowing your attention to go into the body, enjoying anything good about waking up on a beautiful summer morning, blue sky. How lovely is that? So it's about, savouring is about deepening. So it's taking a 1 minute practice and making it deeper, allowing the goodness to soak into your bones if it's warmth and your bones have longed for the heat, your skin, your heart. Now, your heart's really important to self-distraction with extra goodness, but it can be difficult. So this week in Get Your Life Back, we're focusing on connecting to the heart. And whenever I do this work with one-to-one clients, there's often resistance, because the problem is, I do believe we've been conditioned by stories mainly about how following your heart is dangerous. It's just not sensible. It's stupid. If you want to be really successful and secure, if you want security, you don't want to follow your heart because that's reckless. And another problem is that when we focus on the heart, which you can do just by moving your attention to the heart, it doesn't have to be a big deal. And if you're on your own, it can be really nice to put your hands in the centre of your chest, your heart space, to really anchor the attention in your heart. It can feel a bit vulnerable, a bit risky to ask what your heart longs for. It takes courage. It really does take courage to say, what do I really want? Because what we really want to aim for, if we're going to do a heart-centered practice, so a heart-centered practice, really asking what we really want is the hidden stuff, the things we dare not say, the deep secrets of longing, what we really want to do. It's a bit like, I guess, as children, there are things we long for and we think that when we grow up we'll be able to have them, but then adulthood turns out to be massively disappointing because we don't have the freedom that we assume we do. So as children, we think adults have all the power and control and freedom, and then as adults we discover it's really not that simple, because other people have some control over us, and it can be difficult to take back that control within a society which has restrictions, because we need some restrictions to have some sort of order and consideration for each other. And also how we personally react to restrictions, how much we believe that things are rules or laws, or, that there is no other way. That's just the way things are. I mean, how often have you been told, but that's how things are, you can't do that? I mean, I've probably mentioned this before, but I've spent most of my life being told, no, Heidi, you can't do that. Don't be ridiculous. Of course you can't do that. Get your head out of the clouds. Too many ideas, Heidi. That's what I used to get at work. Too many ideas, Heidi. Great ideas, too many ideas. And actually, there would have been too many ideas for employment. And actually, there's too many ideas for entrepreneurship. There's ideas are in abundance. It's picking a good one and running with it. And anyway, I digress. Back to asking your heart what it wants. So there's different layers of this. If you want to just go for the simplest, quickest self-distraction methods to combat the current fear and doom being pumped out as if we really needed more of it, more mental health crisis added to it, more misery added. If you want to combat that like a ninja, then connecting to the heart's really helpful, because that's where joy lives. That's where we absorb joy. And that's how we find our purpose. And it's just a really good part of our internal navigation system. So you can do it at different levels. So as I said, it's the hardest thing is when we go really deep, because we get resistance to do with our beliefs and the stories that we've been told, our conditioning. So if you want to do it really easily, the quickest way, I believe, is to do unexpectedly lovely things. So unexpectedly lovely things, if you haven't yet done it, I suggest you do it on the hour every hour, because then you'll at least do it a couple of times a day, but it's up to you. It's really important not to do it as a strict, I must do it, because we're getting away from musts, shoulds, oughts and pushing ourselves, and just this is an opportunity. What's the easiest way to remind myself? So the easiest way for me is to say, intend to do this on the hour every hour, just because then it's more likely to happen. But for some people that can feel like a pressure, in which case it's better to say, I'm going to do it at this time. And then you schedule it and put sticky notes or get people to remind you, to keep you accountable, so you actually do it. It doesn't really matter, but doing it 2-3 times a day can be life-changing, quite literally. I have people who still do it, and it gets deeper and deeper, and it's fun. So unexpectedly lovely things is this tiny, huge, life-changing practice. Are you ready? I probably mentioned it before, but I want to bring it in now because I want to help you really, really, really be able to control your attention and notice more of the goodness that's already in your life, but you can't see it because you're distracted by the constant fear and doom being pumped out by people who are overwhelmed by fear themselves because of being compassionate. So, not being compassionate, I am compassionate. Language is so important, hey? Drop the judgment. So unexpectedly lovely things. So all you do is you pause and you either look, listen, smell, taste, feel in the body, whatever you want, but look is probably the fastest one because that's what we're used to doing, and because you can direct your head, so you're looking away from your computer screen or whatever you're doing, and you look around for something unexpectedly lovely. Now the reason it's unexpectedly is because it's harder, so it's more work, which means that you have to wake up out of autopilot. Because lovely things, it's easy to glance at and go, oh, that's lovely, and then get back to work or whatever you're doing, or just thinking. So unexpectedly lovely. So it's not that you can't have the same thing twice, and this is really important. So you will get to a stage, especially if you're doing it on the hour every hour or attempting to do it a couple of times a day, where you know where all the unexpectedly lovely things are, and then you say, well, they're not unexpected anymore because I know them. So for example, I had one client who really, really, really needed to bring more nature into her life, but doesn't have time and lives in a city. So we combined unexpectedly lovely with deliberately looking for nature that would nourish her, which means finding the things on the way to work that are there anyway. Now, that means that you're going to be looking at the same thing every time you go to work, but that doesn't mean it can't be unexpectedly lovely, because the thing is, it's the how, not the what. So, for example, there was a tree that was, oh God, it was unexpectedly lovely. See, even now, and I must have seen it like, I don't know, 1,000 times or whatever. I don't know. I haven't worked it out. No, more than that. 9 years of commuting, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, now, first of all, trees are great because they tend to change through the seasons, obviously, depending on the tree. So that's really helpful. They're also alive, so they move and grow. So there is something new. Then there's the sunlight on them, which changes. The weather changes them, the glint of the dew or the glint of the rain, and then what happens in a storm, and then the leaves get knocked off, or so you can notice the changes, and you can search for something unexpectedly lovely in the changes. So trees are great, and who doesn't love trees? I mean, I just adore trees. I'm drawn to trees. I need to be near trees. I hug trees. I kiss trees. I just love trees. And there is always something for me, just looking at different aspects of the tree is always something. You can go in closer, you can look at the bark. The bark of a tree to me often reminds me of an elephant, because the elephant skin and the knots in the tree, can look like an eye of an elephant. Or so, I don't know, it's just like you can get lost in a tree or a plant. So live things, I think, are possibly easier, but then things that aren't alive but they're still going to be affected by changes in season and daylight, so you can notice reflections. So there's lots and lots and lots of things. You don't need to always find something new. It's about how you're doing it. So what we're looking for is, can I detect unexpected loveliness around me as easily as possible? You've got to make it effortless, because let's make life easier, as effortless as possible. So if you're staring at your computer screen, it could be that just closing your eyes is unexpectedly lovely because your eyes were tired. Or it could be that closing your eyes and just gently allowing your chin to drop towards your chest and feeling, that's a nice stretch on the back of my neck. I don't know. There's lots of things. So you can start with just doing unexpectedly lovely things, but then if you want more, which who doesn't want more loveliness in their life, because we want as much as possible to combat, to take back control, combat the fear and doom, and self-distract as much as possible from it so we're not distracting from reality. What we're doing is actually balancing reality, because the goodness is already there, you're just not seeing it. We don't see it because we're not wired to notice it. It's not helpful for survival, but you don't want to just survive. You want to thrive, right? You want to be happy. You want to feel at ease. You want to be able to feel the joy of being alive. So placing the hands on the heart, you can go to different levels. If you just go to a gentle one, just notice how your heart's feeling. And then think of somebody you love, or think of your dog or a tree or something. Think of the last unexpectedly lovely thing that you found last time you were doing that practice, and just notice the sensations in the heart and see if you can connect. And when I say connect, I just literally mean notice physical sensations in the heart space. And the heart space is the center of the chest all the way through the middle to like the back, where somebody would hug you. That lovely part, there's a sensitive part in your back, isn't there, that if somebody hugs you there, it feels really nice. It's where we pat a baby or stroke a baby's back. So just becoming aware of that more and more, and then you can notice, as you become more aware of the heart, you can get drawn to things that fill you, that nourish you, that are good in your life, because you can start to feel them probably before the eyes or the mind rather notice them. And it also, so it's a two-way thing, it can pull you towards things that are unexpectedly lovely, that are already around you, that are invisible, and it can throughout your life draw you towards, which way do I go, what do I do next, how do I make a decision. But also it means that when you do find something, or when you like you hug an old friend, how good is it to hug an old friend you haven't seen them for ages, and you can really, really feel the hug when you're in it rather than breaking away. Or it's not about making the hug necessarily longer, because that might not be comfortable for either of you, but it's about really savouring that hug, feeling it in your heart, feeling it in your body, feeling the love, the connection, the joy. Can you see? So these don't take time, but they take determination and focus. They take effort, but they're made as effortless as possible. And it's based on this. Your mind gets easily overwhelmed because we are wired for survival. Your mind is more likely to notice fear and doom. At the moment, there's a hell of a lot of fear and doom being pushed out into the world. I don't know if it's more than usual. It feels heavy to me at the moment. Therefore, I'm inviting you to join me in a mass effort of self-distraction, to notice the goodness, the joy, the love, the freedom, the beauty that is all around us, but we can't see because we're being distracted by an attention system that is wired to notice the worst. And instead we are self-distracting by noticing and balancing that out. Goodness is all around you. See it, feel it, seek it out, feel it in the body. Use a connection to your heart to help you and guide you, and to savour it. Fill your heart. And if that sounds a little bit woo, fill your heart, then just notice the sensation and what it feels like to you. If it doesn't feel like a fullness, then call it something else. It doesn't matter. I'm just describing what it feels like to me and what other people have described it as. But it's personal. So if filling your heart sounds too woo, or it's not how it feels to you, maybe you get a change in temperature in the centre of your chest. Maybe it just feels more relaxed. I don't know, but you do. At least you do if you deliberately pay attention and notice what's true for you. Anyway, I hope that helps. I just so want to get out of this constant gloom that's been put out at the moment, and just there's so much beauty around. It's such a beautiful day. My garden looks amazing. I love my work. Get Your Life Back is going brilliantly. I love all of the people that I work with. I just think they're amazing human beings, and I feel so privileged to work with them. I am so amazed and delighted and humbled and grateful that you are listening to this podcast. That fills my heart. So from my heart to yours, I wish you a truly, magnificently, unexpectedly lovely week. And I will see you this time next week. Thank you for being here. Please, please, please send this to somebody to give them an unexpectedly lovely day. To find out more about my tiny, huge, life-changing practices, please visit www.heidimark.co.uk.